You're welcome. And the invitation for tonight, it said something about love is the way, and truth is what's watching, and innocence is the experience. So in these very innermost parts of ourself, and this balancing of who and what we are, and the experience of that this who and what is having, to me that's what the curiosity is about. It's not just one aspect. It's what is it like to know all three at once? To be pristine awareness, knowing only authenticity, only clarity. Seeing through everything, seeing everything just exactly how it is, knowing it from the inside. So here the experience is, that's what we are. This pristine clarity, completely authentic. Who we are is the being that arises out of that. It's what's being noticed. And, you know, all of these, this Trinity is very challenging to speak about, because you can't put one label on it. You can only know it from the direct experience, from having it revealed, seeing it for yourself, experiencing it for yourself, becoming curious about it, finding it for yourself. But I would say this quality of being, of who we are, is a loving presence. This loving presence is like a mirror to the truth. And that's why it's so authentic, right? The only thing out there is a mirroring of itself. So it's like when you're dancing and no one's watching, or singing in the shower. You get to try everything out. See what it's like. Because in this pristine awareness and loving presence, this being, right, you're the only one. So as we more and more approximate this truth and this love, as we become closer and closer to it, as it's more and more revealed to us, as we become more and more a finder instead of a seeker, this is how we are. Authentic. Knowing that whatever is being transmitted is what we're going to receive. And you get to try out everything. And it's an instantaneous feedback loop. As soon as something's sent out and it's received instantaneously, if it's not what's desired, or not what's wanted to be experienced, or it's not what's effective, it's shifted. It's a process, and it's an instantaneous process. So one way of putting it is love is the way, awareness is what's watching, and innocence is the experience. And you can't say innocence is the experiencer, or love is the experiencer. Like, you can't place that anywhere. It's either all three together, or you just leave it out. This is how we find the balance. We go from beings that are sort of dual-based to beings that are based in this trinity. It can't be either or anymore. It's all inclusive. And innocence is the experience, because love is the reflection and the truth is what's shining out. It's authentic. It wants to get to know itself. It wants to explore every possibility. That instantaneous response, right? to what's being noticed, it's being reflected in this loving presence, is completely innocent. It's innocent on its way out, it's innocent on its way back. So what I can say about the nature of life is it's utterly innocent. The experience of it is innocence. And you can feel, sense, see, know that if this response, right, this loving response is instantaneous, and it can be shifted instantaneously, what's being sent out and what's being received, right, and it's completely innocent, then there isn't really any room in there for a problem. All problems are time-based. All ideas about problems are time-based. It has to be a process. But if there's just this instantaneous feedback loop going on with myself in this present moment, right now, if I'm speaking about having a body and its awareness and this loving being and this innocent nature all here, right, and it's cooperative and interactive, fully engaged with life, with this present moment, and it's instantaneous, this is the only moment, then there can't really be anything more than something to attend to. And if there's a way about it, if there's a way to attend to it, it's with love. Love is the way. And what's the experience of it attending to it? Innocence. What's being attended to innocently arose. And if we're just being ourself, if I'm just being myself, right, I'm authentically attending to what arose. The nature of that attending is innocent. It just sees what needs to be done, if anything at all. And it's not even a sense of needing to be done, it's just a response. So, for this not to be the experience, there has to be something else happening, right? There has to be some sort of exerting of free will, some desiring of other than what's happening now. There has to be some sense of, I want more or less. And if there's a sense of, I want more or less, it's a subtle frustration or a subtle idea of, that is problematic. this could get out of hand. This could grow. This could go the wrong way. But our true nature as this triune being, where these three aspects are one and the same, there's just a simple seeing, a loving response, and an experience of both of those as being innocent. As far removed as we would get from that experience, right, is as far removed as we are from not seeing clearly and not responding lovingly. If the experience isn't that this is innocent, what's happening over there, what's happening here, the whole thing, if there's an experience of there and here or not, or past, future, whatever the experience, right? If it's not just seen as that's what's arising, and I have the ability and capacity to respond, I'm responsible for myself, so I'm going to attend to what arises. To the extent that we're not having that experience, we're removed from not seeing clearly. Awareness isn't fully available. To the extent we're not having that experience, we're not responding lovingly. And either of these brings us back to the center, right? Seeing clearly gives us the capacity to respond lovingly. Responding lovingly will bring us back to clarity. Tuning into innocence will bring us to where those two are always meeting. So that's how these spiritual paths and religions really work. Mostly, they're usually shooting for one of these points on this triangle, this, I don't have a word for it yet, this triunal being. When you go up in dimensions, right, energy becomes more and more refined. Everything becomes more and more sensitive, and you'll reach a point where you'll pass through what I would say an absoluteness, and on the other side of that absoluteness, everything is obvious, that it has this triunal nature. It's just obvious. And it's obvious below that there's more of a dual nature. It's just a point where it changes. That's just the way it is. And somehow that's seamless. To exhibit this dual nature or this tri-nature, it's not like a gap, right? It's seamless also. So you can become enlightened to this pristine awareness, or you can wake up into your loving presence. And either one is just going to lead you to the other. And once the other is found, once the other is known, once the other is embodied, it's going to reveal this innocent nature, this innocent essence, this innocent relationship, this innocent experience. So for me, tuning into innocence is the simplest. It's something we're already acquainted with. Most of us, most human beings aren't even acquainted with what we call unconditional love. We haven't really experienced it with others, with ourselves. Many of us are terrified of this pristine awareness, where it seems like our identity fails, our identity doesn't exist. It's impersonal. But innocence doesn't frighten off that part that's attached to the identity. And it's part of its nature to be loving. It's just curious and playful, and where those two meet it's already loving. And we're already acquainted with it. We find it all over the place. So just tuning into that innocent nature that's already here, that inner child, brings us right to the meeting place of love and wisdom, and brings us right to the meeting place of presence and truth. It brings us right to the precipice of where we can step into that can't be spoken about. It has just inherent in its nature this loving presence and this authentic clarity. And in its nature, there's a curiousness to investigate that and to do it playfully. So there's a endless spiraling and spiraling, a coordinating of truth and love. You could also maybe say that awareness is what realizes itself, right? It realizes. And love is what awakens. Love is what embodies, vitalizes. And innocence is what acts. Innocence is what actualizes. So when we're seeing clearly and responding lovingly and curiously and playfully engaging with this, what's here, this moment, right? We're actualizing it. It's becoming real. We've become part of God, the instrument of God that's making the creation of God real. We're bringing existence into existence. Wherever you go, wherever you travel, where this center point of your individualized being is, then you're actualizing a pathway through time and space. It's becoming actualized. So for me, if there's a mastery, that's it. To be actualizing and to be conscious of it, to be aware of it. You want to talk about co-creating, right? What could be more co-creative than actualizing what's been the thought that's been emitted, the what's been lovingly attended to step in it and bring it to life, to remind it of its own unity, to remind it of its own presence, to remind it of its own God self. So, being a human being, right, on the earth, now, this actualization, this attending to what's here, means to be a good steward of the planet, to be a good steward of your species, of yourself, of your family, of your environment. It's reminding it that it doesn't need to be anything else, that it's already all that it could be. It's already more than it could have ever imagined. It's like if you were going around and touching everything and it's, it like lights up in an LED. Everything comes to life just from your attention, just from your being. And it's all of nature, all of creation has been waiting in this plane for you to show up. It doesn't know it's waiting, it's just being. But as soon as you show up, as soon as you're present with it, as soon as you're actualized, it's the whole moment. It's everything you're sensing, multidimensionally. Now there's a pathway to it. And the pathway is your life, is your existence, is your knowing of self, is your realization of truth, is your loving attention, is your innocent, curious playfulness. And it's instantaneous, right? When you're authentic. And there's no holding back. Why would you withhold from yourself? So what I'm speaking of, what I'm trying to describe, what I'm failing probably miserably at describing, is where all these different paths meet, right? Where clear seeing reveals what is, and true service, lovingly attending to that, has the experience of complete and utter innocence. That is only every attending, every instantaneous response, every reflection just brings more curiosity and more playfulness. And as an individualized personality that's becoming divine, this is infinite and eternal. Even at the highest level, right? Even at the very creator, if you could ever find that and sort of pinpoint it, which likely is impossible, right? Because it's all inclusive. Even if you could do that, that's the experience there. It's playfully, lovingly creating and attending to entire universes, multiverses, filling them with life, and instantly having the feedback from all of it, assigning parts of itself to attend to it. Having infinite points of feedback, infinite points of reflection. Just imagine if every cell of your body was a mirror, and every one of them was transmitting its sense of itself, its curiosity about itself. Just feel how alive that might be. That's what it's like to be deeply present. So alive. And not so much with an agenda, right? It just naturally arises, this curiosity, and then there's movement. this loving presence that moves. And the movement doesn't change the stillness. It doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the original template. It doesn't change the source. So there's constant sameness and constant change. And the interaction between those is completely innocent. So, dissolving in silence. Isn't it? Falling in love with everything and becoming spread, vast and expansive. Isn't it? Holding this curious, playful nature towards all of it, isn't it? It's all three. It's where they all meet and they're all known and experienced. And even that's inaccurate, right? It's just knowingly being it. And everything I'm saying fails. And something opens up that's inclusive of everything that's being pointed out. That's inclusive of everything that's being said. But what's being said is utterly ridiculous and ludicrous. A fullness and overflowing replaces it. And that overflowing could be said to be clear, authentic, loving, and innocent. And it's an endless response that's endlessly folding in on itself. And it's this action of folding in on itself that makes it eternal and infinite. There's no beginning. So in this coordinating of our being, of our personality, of what looks like this life, what we're speaking about really could just be boiled down to life. It's infinitely funneling to some purpose, some desired result, some desired reflection, some desired knowing, and then as soon as it becomes so refined, so the funnel becomes so tight that it's a point, it's swallowed by the funnel that created it. It's endlessly happening. So a simple way to remind ourselves of that is just to tune into this playful, curious nature. Because when we're playful and curious, there aren't any problems. And we can even point that at a problem. A judgment, conditioning. I always do this a certain way. I wonder why. Just so simple, right? I wonder why. And then an answer doesn't come. The wondering just opens it up. So the thought just came up. It's time to kind of wrap this up, sort of pull it all together. And I knew it wasn't possible. It's open-ended. What you are is open-ended, eternal, and infinite. Shining, mirroring, playing, enjoying, experiencing, individualizing, condensing, merging, and none of it ever happened. And it looks just like this. Welcome. What happens here for me is that while we're sitting, there's just tuning in sort of to what's in the room. And what's here is essentially neutral, except for what we bring. So to notice anything but silence and stillness and peace, love, simplicity, right? It's all very sort of flat. Doesn't mean the sensation of it's flat, but it's the same, right? What's here is the same. What's in this moment is very much always here. So what's being tuned into, what's sort of being felt or assimilated, noticed by this instrument is what we bring. What's not in balance. So what's being noticed is what's out of balance, or what's arising out of that seamless neutrality, some very authentic or innocent question, yearning, a longing, desire, part of what our personality's here to explore. What there's a devotion to. So it's either what we're bringing that's sort of out of balance, that's seeking balance, or this dynamic that's intrinsic to your person, to your personality, to your individuated godness, right? That it's here to explore. So what's being felt and noticed is what each of us is bringing, and then there's sort of a pull, demand placed upon the well, like the valves turned open to respond to that. Sometimes there isn't much to respond to. There's just a lot of silence, a lot of just being here. Other times it's more of a sense of a lot. Like a lot of questions, a lot of movement. And that's more the sense tonight is, and it might not even be, for those of us sitting here, it might be someone that's watching live, it might be in the collective, it might be something that's passing through us, it's not even personal. So what's happening here is just a response to that. Not really even maybe an understanding of it. Just an authentic, pure responding. And who and what we are is so vast, so immense, so multidimensional. Even if a question comes up in our being, even if an authentic question comes up, even if there's something to attend to, it can be attended to or seen or felt in so many different ways. What's coming down, just a reference is down. What's descending through dimensions, creating this environment, this experience, this existence, this place we find ourselves having a body, has infinite ways, infinite channels, infinite possibilities of even informing this vessel, informing this instrument, connecting to it. And the same, as we're looking upward through less and less dimensions. So at this very beginning, the very, what do I say, least dense, right? Where the source of what we know as existence, where we find ourselves, gains qualities as it's descending, as it's becoming more and more physical, more and more dense. Then it gains attributes. Then it gains personality. This is where we find our humanness. We have a personality. It's unique to just us. There's only one that exactly matches the uniqueness of you. And so in a continuum, right, from this personality to this seamless, same, always, we can find our attention on any level of that, right? This desire, this question, this imbalance that we bring, right, can be coming from any level of me, any level of us, any point. There could be an origin point, an inception point for this question, for this place that's out of balance. In our humanness, we've been sort of taught that it's always here, right? That somehow we need to be more, that we need to be greater, that we need to connect, that we need to be in tune. And what I'm saying is, our humanness is equal. If you take this source of us and you take a little from it, right? If it's perfect, what we take away is perfect. What's left is perfect. However thin we spread it is perfect. It's all the same. One of the biggest stumbling blocks we have here as a human being is this idea that we have to gain in perfection. We have to become more and more perfect. There's an aspect of us that's impossible. It never changes. It doesn't evolve. Evolution, refinement happens within it. The basic building blocks of what you are, right, is the same. There's a refinement, and when I say refinement, it's like, let's say you put some big stones in a jar. That's maybe your mind. Let's say there's 3 big stones in a jar. One's your mind, your heart, your existential being. Those things that really we know here, being in a body. They come right to the top of the jar. Then we pour in some smaller pebbles. Maybe those are our attributes that make up our personality, our preferences. type of body we have, what dimension we're, taking up our being in. Then we pour some sand in, right? The jar just keeps taking more. Then powder, then water, then the space between the water. That the stones are in the jar, right, aren't negating the water. The water actually soaks through the stones. The stones become saturated with the water. There's spaces between the water molecules. This is the way it works for a human being. There's just pure awareness. Fundamentally, this is what we are. If you keep investigating, right, you keep dumping things out of the jar, see what's the finest thing that makes up what's in our jar, in our being. Fundamentally, what we are is awareness. A little less refined, fundamentally, who we are is presence. Awareness has one limitation, right? Awareness couldn't even be if a limitation wasn't put on it. Awareness has one limitation. It has to be. It's always being. That beingness has a presence. You could say the main quality of that presence is that it's loving. So we can focus on any level of this. We can focus on the body, the mind, the heart, our existential being, pure awareness, loving presence, and everything in between. And under investigation, under scrutiny, under direct experience, you'll find out that it's all seamless. So, from this immutable, unchangeable, silent, still awareness comes a beingness that has a loving presence. So these are the things that define us more than anything else, because they're literally in the cells of our body, in our thinking, in our emotional states, in all of our bodies. The mind is just another body. Our sense of heart, right, of having a feeling center, it's just another body. All these bodies are aware. All these bodies have a loving presence to them. So it's good to just notice, acknowledge this pristine awareness, this loving presence for what it is, and not put some sort of, not put it on a pedestal, right, above having a body. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you have a body. There's a reason that you have this finely attuned instrument. There's a reason that there's this vast mind and eternal heart. It's just part of who you are. I would say that a sense of mastery of whatever dimension you find yourself, of whatever instrument you find yourself inhabiting, right? A sense of mastery would be, a sense of mastery comes with noticing that it's all equal. Giving too much attention to awareness, too much attention to loving presence, too much attention to the body, too much attention placed anywhere will show your lack of mastery. And from this place of mastery, right, which you could say is just an equilibrium and a balance in all of yourself, all the different bodies. And that's what we started speaking about at the beginning, is what we're bringing is what's either out of balance and wanting attention, or something that we're here to playfully, curiously investigate. Is sort of one of our attributes of our being, parts of our personality, preferences. It's something that we're holding, that we've been sent out to investigate and bring back the information. It passes through us. In this desire of creator, creation, creature to know itself, right? It's happening at all levels. The whole purpose of creation is for the creator to have an experience to know itself. The whole purpose of creation is to have a venue, a platform, a stage for it to occur in. So it's interested in knowing itself too. And then in creation we find these instruments, creatures, something that inhabits the creation, right? It's interested in knowing itself too. All aspects have the same drive, the same curiosity to know themselves. So any question that we might have right now with us can be followed back to this curiosity to know, no matter what it looks like. It doesn't mean we abandon the uniqueness or the peculiar nature of that question, right? But underneath, if we understand it's to know ourselves, it gives it a different meaning, it gives it another depth. We might hold it in a different way. We might more understand that with the eternal nature of life and the infinite space it has to explore, that this question doesn't have any definite answer. And that it may be eternally refining itself. And if we know and understand that fundamentally what we are is this pristine awareness that it's already refined as much as it will ever be. It's unchanging. And who we are is this loving presence that attends to whatever comes. If we know these two are fundamentally true and unchanging, we might meet what arises, we might meet the questions, or we might hold the questions differently, right? There might be more patience. Might be less urgent. There might be a clear seeing that it's not even that important what question it is that we're holding, or if there is one. In the clear seeing, all questions might disappear. So in this grand play, there's always beingness being sent out in unique ways to explore, to experience, to discover more about who and what we are. Infinitely, eternally. And the more those beings are refined by noticing their already refined aspects, right? It's not like literally being polished. It's through the accepting of the limitations that we have that we really step through them, that they really just sort of disappear. There's certain limitations we have to have this body. Otherwise, the body couldn't stay a body, right? This body is God playing a character, not breaking character. Otherwise, sometimes it'd be a body, sometimes it would be air, sometimes it would be, a wall, a chair, nothing. And in existence, through experience, through knowing, through inquiry, through lovingly attending to whatever arises, we find out there isn't anything that isn't the body of God. Everything we meet, everything that's attended to, everything that's been seen, everything that's been felt, all body of God. Existence as the body of God. So, in our seeming refinement, in the seeming polishing of our multifaceted being, right? We just notice more often, more acutely, more precisely, the same thing again and again and again. I am, you are, God is. We're all here to explore ourself. There's only one self. There's only one of us. And that one of us has created limitations in existence through densities, multi-level densities of being, to create this grand stage to experience its own self descending into matter and its own self waking up from matter. It's always going both ways. So, the most popular stumbling block, right, to this mastery that I'm speaking about, this equilibrium, this balance of multidimensional being, is that our attention is too much focused in one place. The most popular way this happens is we think we're just this body and everything else is separate. But through just being here, right? Just resting in this body at first, resting as it, resting in it, we start to rest in the moment. Then we start to rest as the moment. Then we start to rest in this loving presence. And we start to rest as this loving presence. And we start to rest in the silence, in the stillness. Then as the silence, as the stillness. Without abandoning the body, without abandoning the character that we came here to play. seeing this character as indispensable to the silence, to the stillness. Seeing the character as indispensable to loving presence.
So it ends up being some, I feel like I'm being within what is, what I think is what is for years, cycling through the same thoughts. Lately, I feel like I've been nipping things in the bud, and then almost cultivating things. Humility, acceptance, abundance. They seem to expand. So my question is this mastery like a mastery of attention? What you put your attention on?
Yes.
Because I feel like years in negativity, now I just cut it. I don't go there.
Right. So what we were saying earlier is that the mastery is in the equilibrium and having an equanimity of attention. Right? If there's seemingly a body here, how much attention does this room require? How much attention does this human being require? How much attention does this chair require? How much attention does my heart beating require? How much attention does thinking require? Right? So if you are having repetitive thoughts and if you are lost in negativity, that means a lot of attention was put on thinking. An inappropriate amount of attention was going to thinking compared to the chair, compared to the floor, compared to loving presence, right, compared to stillness. So right now, tune in with me just a little more. And so even in the posture, you can see you turn your head this way a little bit. There you go. Just let it move a little bit, like just real gently, and you'll notice, you'll feel the flow of it all of a sudden. Whew. There it went. You feel it? Right. Now, what needs your attention right now? Is there more or less attention?
I feel more expanded.
Right. But is there more attention than there was before? Is there what's watching more or less? Right. So how much sameness is there?
How much sameness is there?
Yeah. Don't think about this, just stay with me.
It seems like you just take that quality.
Right. Yeah.
Not really,
So is there silence?
yeah.
Is there stillness? Is there loving presence? Yeah. You just went up to thinking. Thinking will never find loving presence. It doesn't know it. Because it's down here. Right? So it's just a felt sense, and an answer will come, and it may or may not even make sense to you. Is there loving presence? Are you present?
Yes.
Is everything else that you can sense present?
Yes.
Is there a sense that everything's being attended to?
Yes.
What's it being attended to by?
Awareness.
This is it. We're just going to keep staying right here. What's it being attended to by? Does it have a quality of softness?
Yes.
Does it have a quality of patience?
Yes.
Does it have a quality of kindness?
Yes.
Could we call this love?
I guess so.
This kind, patient, soft,
Feels like
generous,
kindness
right?
is the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a kindness in the way it's attending, right? So, I'm going to wrap all those together, right? I'm going to tune into the kindness, that is patient, that has a softness. There's a generosity that it keeps coming, right? It's very generous. This is something that we can just agree on. It's love. Can you feel that little bit of resistance?
Some tension in my heart.
Yeah, alright. So just tell me, it's not love.
It's not love.
Now what happens? So, what's going on in your being, right, is there's more appreciation for the silence and the stillness than there is to what attends to it. So, what's opening is really an appreciation for love. So just tell me, love has done me wrong.
Love has done me wrong.
Fuck love.
Fuck love.
How's that feel?
All right. There's some sensation in the heart.
Right. So there's a lot of bubbling and sensation in the heart.
Yes.
Yeah. Things are coming loose.
Pardon?
Things are coming loose.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Absolutely.
Rearranging. Right? And what the result of that is an equilibrium. Otherwise, nothing would rearrange. Right? This is what all of nature is looking for, equilibrium. When a snowball melts, it all flattens out. Right? It sinks into the ground. It's looking for equilibrium. What's on this planet? What's the major cause of equilibrium? What makes the water flat in the glass? Gravity. What's gravity? Gravity is an attraction. Yes. What makes an attraction? Right. gravity's a force. And in the whole universe, there's only one force.
No wonder the physicists haven't figured that one out.
Right. So, I just got lost. I don't even know what were we talking about
Gravity, love, one force.
before that. Yeah. Oh, it's a balancing. It's looking for equilibrium. So anything that's moving is looking for equilibrium. If there's a low pressure and a high pressure in the weather, right? The wind blows and then it evens out. It's constant. The thing that is making an equilibrium more than anything on this planet is gravity, which is a force, which is a force of love. It's lovingly holding you on the planet. It's lovingly going around the sun, tuned into the gravity of the planet and the sun. Right? It's an equilibrium. It's spinning at just the right rate that we don't fly off. It doesn't stop every once in a while. Right? It's constant. Gravity's constant. Love is constant. The flow of love is constant. Never ending. What's already silent and still, right, is in equilibrium. Right? It's the reference point. It's what you would compare to see if equilibrium is there. What's arising out of it, which is, we could say the silence and stillness is truth. Then what takes motion out of it, what arises out of it, which is the beginning of creation, which is existence, where we find ourselves, is truth in motion. And truth in motion we popularly refer to as love. So in your system, there's an experience or a preference that's maybe very just unique to your personality of what it's meant to explore, or what it's comfortable with, or what it has experience with, right? That gives a higher quality to the stillness and the silence than what's moving.
What comes up for me is I've been sitting still for 40 years.
You've been sitting
That's
still?
very acronymous.
You've been sitting still for 40 years?
I didn't meditate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so in this yeah, right, in this 40 years of meditation, did you come into contact with stillness and silence? Right. So that's what will happen in meditation. You will eventually come into contact with stillness and silence. It's inevitable. It's what it's designed to do. Because we're always noticing what's moving, right? Guess what's moving? Everything. No thing is silent and still. Everything is moving and is a function of gravity, right? So in your being, in your humanness that's perfecting itself, that's becoming more and more refined towards silence and stillness, right? If that's the goal, you just have to step over everything that's moving, right? To get there. You have to step over it. All those levels of multidimensionality, all those levels of what's coming into existence. And this is really even what's taught in Zen and Buddhism. It's taught to skip all that, right? To get to the silence and stillness. There's no other way. That's how we find it. But then, after we've steeped in silence and stillness enough, right? Then we come back and give equal attention to what's silent and still, and equal attention to what's moving. So what's moving is all a function of love. And it might just be, in your particular experience, just the word, right? Because human love has a whole different connotation, has a whole different experience. It has, it's just all over the place. But what I'm speaking about is constant and the same. It's kind, generous, soft, patient. It has the quality of being present. So when we're deeply present, we notice the presence, right? And often that's attributed out there, right? If we're in the presence of a being that has a very strong presence and it's very loving and kind and generous, we'd say, oh, I was in, the presence of my teacher, guru, whatever, the enlightened one. We notice that, but there's only one presence. That being's just tuned into it, right? So when you tune into it, it's the same. When we all become very present, there's only one presence, and it's you. And it's kind, and it's generous, and it's patient, it's soft, and it's very, very direct. And if you engage it with a certain devotion, with a certain mirroring that directness, right, it will become very forceful with you, because it carries all the force. It will reveal its grand nature, right? So like you said, for your being in particular, maybe there's been this a lot of this attention, 40 years of attention placed on silence and stillness. And so what's flowing, through this vessel is saying, how about putting some of it on loving presence now? And seeing what happens. And what's going to happen is what you just reported. More abundance. What else was it? What else was your report? More abundance, and what else? Humility. Temperance. Yeah. Right. It's more of a balance. Yes. It's because silence doesn't attend. Silence and awareness just is, right? It's not attending to anything, so it doesn't cultivate. Yes, right. What I'm saying is, love is the cultivator. So when what you love and appreciate. So even tuning into silence and stillness, what cultivates that is love. And acknowledging that love is the cultivator, you will find more abundance and more cultivation. Is this making sense?
Yep, you're doing good.
All right. And it's more mastery because it has an equilibrium to it. It has a balance to it.
That makes sense. It comes up for me. Buddhism for 7 years. It's more about discrimination.
Yeah. It tells you to ignore all that.
There's some heart to it, but not that much.
Right. Yes. So if we go look at Buddhism, right, it it's all around this guy named Buddha. They call him Buddha, like that wasn't his name, right? Which really just means the enlightened one, right? Yeah, the awakened one. So the teaching that came through that fellow, right, came to a planet at a specific moment in time that had a dimensional orientation, that had a potential at that moment of what it could receive. The limitation was, there's two limitations, right, in a transmission from the Buddha to the earth: the capacity of the Buddha and the capacity of what's receiving it, right? So at that time, as perfection would demand, the teaching that came was exactly measured to what could be received. And as awakening passes through the human system, mostly, most popularly, most commonly, is there's an awakening of the mind, then awakening of the heart, then awakening of the gut, then awakening of the existential being, right? So as it would proceed, what was given out as a teaching, what was given out as instructions, what was given out as the way, was to come into contact with pristine awareness, with God mind, right? What's happened since then is other beings that held even more capacity were sent, because there was more possibility, more potential, there was more receptivity, because more beings had evolved and had connected with this pristine awareness, this God mind, right? So they were ready now for the full heart opening. So beings like Jesus is the best example, brought the fullness of the heart, right? Which happened, thousands of years later. So you can follow that teaching, but that teaching is a prescription, just like you'd get from a doctor. It's a prescription for a certain ailment, and it will have a certain result, right? It's meant to awaken the mind. What I'm speaking about is to awaken all of it. To not be so focused here. It's only meant to be momentary, right? Then it drops. Then it drops. Some people it goes the other way around. Some people have this awakening, that's coming from the bottom up. It has a lot of vibration in it. It has a lot of Divine Mother in it. It has a lot of Kundalini energy in it. It's going the other direction. Self-realization will be the last thing that happens. It won't make any sense to them, even what you're speaking about. It'll be the last thing in this system that the Buddha was speaking about. It's the first. And then it goes from there, right? So there was a lot of emphasis, a lot of attention put on this certain aspect, this certain part. And if there's been a focus on that for a long time, you can see, like, you've literally been teaching the mind and teaching the system to skip to the end, almost, right? And at that time on planet Earth, it was the only way. If you would have if you'd have dealt with the collective emotional burden and the collective existential burden on humanity, you would have probably never ever made it. It was an impossibility almost. Right? That's not how it is now.
Okay, so shifting to the Western tradition, I am that I am,
Mm-hmm.
getting in touch with that place inside.
Right.
Can we be co-creators in that God place, that God itself?
To be a co-creator, to come into co-creational, wielding the power, right?
I mean, not necessarily power.
Knowledge. So it would be knowledge. Knowledge would be the mind, right?
I mean, manifesting.
Yeah, right. So if you're going to be manifesting something, that's a very co-creational quality, and we are powerful. Whatever limits you believe in, whatever limits you accept, are the boundaries of your co-creational. That's the extent of your co-creational possibilities, right? And so if these negative thoughts are always going through your mind, like you were saying before, right? If that's what's happening, then that's what your experience is going to be, until the desire and the devotion gets bigger, or a rage against those gets bigger and pushes through. Something has to get bigger, right? And that can just be the amount of attention that's going to this. But there are safe stops, there are portals that we have to pass through to gain more co-creational possibility, to extend our co-creational influence, if you would, right? The first one is, you've got to be present. Otherwise, your influence is mostly going into the past and future and having nothing to do with this. And it's mostly based on fear. Fear doesn't carry much gravity, right? Fear it doesn't carry much potency. To be co-creational and to have some sort of effect, there has to be a consistency. So you have to be based in silence and stillness, right? What's arising must be pure, and it must be in alignment with what is here and what's wanted now. Otherwise, you're saying, I'm going to override this system. I'm going to override existence with my own will. I'm going to create something other than what's scheduled for now.
Well, I just wondered, I got to a deep place of stillness and presence, and I wanted to cultivate love, let's say, like you say, I am love.
Right.
And that would expand that, right, now look at my heart,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or I'm healing or something, that would start moving through me.
Yes.
And
What happened?
pardon me?
So you said you wanted to cultivate love, so you're meditating with the statement, I am love.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, it seems to expand a little bit.
Right.
It's like making a new road. You have
Yeah.
to do it over and over. And I know you know this because of your job, but yeah, it's
Sure.
like, yeah, making a new groove because your whole life it's been one way.
I'm thinking little mind runs.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so, I don't know, is that normal?
It would depend, right? Right. If you leave being present.
Right.
So this is the discernment. So what you've learned through the Buddhist system, right, is discernment. So now apply that discernment to, am I present? And then from am I present, step in whichever direction you like. Right? But if the stepping in any direction you like takes you out of presence, then it's been defeated. Then you know it's out of alignment with what wants to happen now. So the discernment is useful. You're sort of there becomes a vigilance that is the mind, right? In service to the heart. The vigilance is, am I present? Right? It goes from just silence and stillness, which if the mind's silent and there isn't any agenda going on, fundamentally you're present. Right? But now you're deciding, oh, I'd like to move from here. So this is where it starts to get tricky, right? First of all, it's tricky to get everything to stop. That's the first part. Then it's, oh, now I would like to actually move from here. Not just find this in meditation. I'm interested in finding this everywhere, right? That's when love starts to flow. Because you're going to move from here. So with that discernment that you've gained through meditation, the discernment can be focused on, am I present, until it's not needed anymore. Right? And you'll know, because the discernment will just fall away. It almost gets to be, you can't tell the difference, because what's happened is you're not leaving being present any longer. And on the rare occasion that you are, you know, oh, I'm going to go into thinking and do my taxes. But as soon as you're done with the taxes, you're just here again. Then it's over, right? I would suggest try this on. If you're going to meditate and you're interested in awakening the heart, just in the meditation, become still and silent and say, what is love? So, just for a moment, try that now. But stay with me. And we just say, out of crazy innocent curiosity, the desire to know, what is love? Yeah, you don't have to say it out loud, but yeah, just, what is love? You really wanting to know. Curious, I don't know. What is love? What is love? Now what happens? Besides that. Besides words. Right. It expands quite quickly, right? Because receptivity becomes immense. Right? And what's being received is just being felt and known. And it's known that it's a response to this question. That this is the answer. So it's like an experiential definition, defining, not a definition, but a defining of love. This is it. It's being felt, it's being known. Yes. Right. So the center shifts immediately from here to here. Discernment now is in devotion to the heart. And if it stays there, now it knows always if loving presence is being experienced or not. Because it's this. It'll be constantly, vigilantly discerning this. It's like having a motion detector, right? It's like, dun! Alerts you. So now, if I say, is there silence and stillness? Yes. Is there loving presence? It's not, you can't think about it.
Yeah, I'm experiencing it.
Mm-hmm. So say the question again. What is love? Yeah.
Connection.
But you're gonna use this discerning mind to disregard words. We're saying to the moment, to God, what is love? And I can see the shift in you. So that the shift happens from here to here, the answer is yes. So what's being rewired right now as I'm assisting is, this is the yes. Because it's not been known, right? It's been too ambiguous or not concise. It's way easier to describe awareness than it is love. So much easier, right? But everything we're experiencing is it. It's prolific. The ways that it shows up are eternal and infinite. Awareness just shows up one way. You could say that love is really awareness as a gift to you, which through the experiencing of it you'll find out is you. And when that experience becomes full, it'll be offered back out of gratitude and appreciation. I think that's it for tonight.